Hi, my name is Tamara, and the purpose of this presentation is to show the need for a crisis management plan at the local school level and to highlight how school leaders can take an active role in facilitating this process. First, let's talk about what it means to have a crisis in school. It can be described as an event that occurs suddenly out of the blue, is unpredictable, unexpected, and it totally disrupts the normal school operations. It's a time where it leaves school leaders a split decision to make about keeping the school and the staff safe both physically and psychologically. Let's talk about what the statistics say. Crisis events are on the rise, and in the 2021-2022 school year, 857,500 violent incidents were reported in public schools. These statistics do not lie, and they are a loud and clear indication of action needing to be taken now. 96% of these incidents involve natural disasters and active shooters, while 94% involve suicide incidents and 92% involve bomb threats. In response to these statistics, 90% of public schools have expanded their emotional and social support for students. And we do not want to be amongst the 10% that did not take any extra precautionary measures to keep everyone safe. Experts say that the best way to prepare for these types of incidents is to have a crisis management plan in place. A crisis management plan is a document that explains step by step how to handle urgent situations and to make sure everyone is prepared in knowing their role that they will play in this situation in order to keep everyone safe and to mitigate the loss of life and other damages. Not only does the crisis management plan assign responsibilities and roles to the crisis team members, it also outlines specific actions to be taken by the team members and the strategies that will be used to carry out those actions. When we talk about why a crisis management plan might be needed, it simply boils down to being prepared, having faculty and staff know what their role is and how to respond in the situation. It also prevents chaotic responses. It takes the guesswork and disorganization and mass confusion out of what needs to be done. A crisis management plan facilitates the recovery process by documenting how a school counselor can aid students, faculty, and staff in restoring a sense of normalcy and promoting resilience after a traumatic event has happened. So I've already talked a little bit about the components of a crisis management plan. There was the crisis team, there's local level interventions, and there's the recovery process and referrals to outside resources. In schools, the crisis management team can be made up of any individual who's designated by the principal. A part of this team includes the principal himself, an assistant principal, school counselors, school psychologists, social workers, the school nurse, the school resource officer, and a faith-based liaison. Now let's talk about the roles of the crisis team members. The principal is the overseer of all operations in the crisis protocol. They will communicate with faculty and staff, family, and press to disseminate accurate and up-to-date information. The assistant principal coordinates logistics and oversees the implementation of the response procedures. The school counselor provides crisis counseling, while the school psychologist will assess and support trauma victims. The school social worker will provide outreach to families. The school nurse will address any immediate physical and medical needs. The resource officer will coordinate with law enforcement to ensure the safety and security of the school, faculty, staff, and students. The faith-based liaison provides culturally appropriate services that provides for the spiritual well-being that meets the students' needs. So as you can see, each team member has a specific role in providing local interventions and school supports that will meet the needs of students in the recovery and referral process. We should get the ball rolling on creating a crisis management plan, and the first steps in the process is to gain board approval. After that, we'll be able to select team members and give them their clear and direct roles and responsibilities. We'll also be able to develop communication protocols and create emergency procedures. as well as establish community partnerships and get the staff trained. An important part of the recovery process is to allow for individuals to rely on their spiritual beliefs to cope with their emotions, because research states that this is how many students do cope. So it's important to be able to address those needs. During times of tragedy, students may question their faith and ask things like why God has allowed these things to happen. This is a question that is best addressed by a spiritual leader. That's why it's important for students' concerns with their spiritual well-being to be acknowledged and supported. When students are given the opportunity to gather for prayer, it aids in the recovery and healing process. Research shows that by allowing students to gather for prayer opportunities, by participating in grief counseling support groups, by being able to honor victims with memorial services, and being able to receive referrals to faith-based interventions, that it promotes resilience in the community. In order to address the spiritual needs of students, counselors can partner with faith-based organizations that provide spiritual support for those who are in need. Research is in favor of students receiving faith-based interventions and says that there are many benefits to it. The New International Version of the Holy Bible says in Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7, that we should not be anxious about anything. And Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you." The word urges us to carry each other's burdens, found in Galatians chapter 6, verse 2. And blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. And that is Matthew chapter 5, verse 4. So when partnering with a faith-based organization, the school counselor must ensure that the faith-based liaison that they choose would share the same beliefs and religious values as the students that they are connecting the liaison with. And they must make sure that they do the connection with the consent of both the student and the student's family. While students who practice Christianity might find comfort in the aforementioned biblical scriptures, it is important for the school counselor not to promote any religion in particular, but instead to recognize that there is religious diversity among students and families. Some of the benefits of partnering with a faith-based organization are that students can receive long-term support and have more access to emergency supports after a traumatic event. Also, it can act as an expansion of counseling resources that students receive at school. And additionally, it builds trust from the community, as many people rely on prayer and their faith. Spiritual guidance does not replace any interventions that are normally provided in the school setting. However, they do enhance and complement them. So each scripture carries a message of compassion, peace, hope, and comfort that aligns with the student's biblical beliefs. While having a crisis management plan in place is important, it is even more important to ensure that it is effective and that it works. Surveys with students, faculty, staff, and families can be conducted to get their perspective on how effective that the plan was and to receive feedback on any perspective that they would give on improvements. Also, the crisis team can debrief with one another so that they can analyze response times to see what actions worked best and what didn't work so well. In addition to this, data can be gathered from counseling referrals. The data gathered from crisis intervention strategies can determine how much intervention was needed, how well they worked, and highlight specific areas of improvement. Analyzing academic data can show whether or not there was an uptick, a steadiness, or a decline in academic performance after a traumatic event. My call to action is for school leaders. We're relying on you to take action on a plan that will benefit and support students and families in a time of crisis, that will ensure the safety and promote the recovery process of students. This is an action that will ultimately benefit the community as a whole, and we would like to have your help. Thank you very much.